Hello and welcome to the Packaging Europe podcast. I'm your host for today, Victoria Hattersley, and I'm joined by Carolina Lobel, who is Senior Director at the Closed Loop Center for the Circular Economy, which is part of the Next Gen consortium. And why am I talking to Carol? Because we're going to be discussing city-scale reuse pilots. And as some of our listeners may know, in recent years, Closed Loop Partners have been involved in quite a prominent one with several industry partners. The Petaluma Reusable Cup project in sunny California ran for 12 weeks in 2024, and the results were released last year. I think they've proved to be quite instructive for us over in Europe and indeed for the industry as a whole. So, Carol, thank you very much for speaking with me today. To give listeners some context, I was hoping you could briefly tell me about what the project involved, the impetus behind it, who the partners were, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Victoria. Great to be here
You're
with you
welcome.
and talking about my favorite topic. So let's dive in. So Petaluma was part of a broader journey of years of collaboration. So Closed Loop Partners, we invest, we build, and we operate in the circular economy space. And then in the Innovation Center, the Center for the Circular Economy, we've been working with food service packaging partners, Starbucks, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, since 2018 to reinvent their cups and to find solutions to challenges, to food service packaging challenges that they can't solve alone. And reuse has always been one of these challenges that no one brand can figure out alone. And for the last decade, really, all of us individually have been trialing solutions, and then brands would pop reuse systems inside of their stores, but they always had some barrier to adoption, right? They always had to convince their consumers to choose that reusable packaging. They had to shape new behaviors and new cultural norms alone. And our thesis in Petaluma was, if we could bring all these brands together, and not just the brands, if we could bring the public sectors together with the private sector and have one entire community doing reuse together, our thesis is that we would be able to shape the local cultural, social norms much quicker. And this was the question we wanted to answer, like, what will it take for reuse to be an everyday reality in the US? And we started with one small community. Petaluma is like 60,000 people. We had hundreds of thousands of cups converted to reuse overnight. So in this 3 months of the program, everyone in that town got exposed to reuse, and we saw that people embraced this new system and this new behavior much quicker.
So was Petaluma chosen because it's a relatively small community, so it was good for kind of a test case, so you could easily kind of measure the data? Was that why this particular region was chosen?
A small community where we had piloted other smaller scale reuse programs before, a community that cared about this and that was more likely to embrace a reuse program. It also had a very good geography within the downtown area. There was a less than 1 kilometer radius where there were 30 restaurants, so a bunch of restaurants near one another. So we had all 30 restaurants in this like small radius participating in the program.
Oh,
And we also
perfect.
had 60 return bins like spread all over this like small area with the support from the town as well.
Yeah, sounds ideal then. You you mentioned the the huge challenges there are, I think, that the industry as a whole has found in scaling reuse, and we've heard and talked a lot about this over the years. You mentioned consumer behavior as one. Is that the biggest challenge, or are there other kind of sort of more broader infrastructural challenges that are preventing reuse from being scaled the way we'd all like it to be?
I see this as two core questions, and we can unpack each of them. For me, it's
Mm.
like one is, will consumers embrace it, and what does it take? And this was the question that Petaluma was answering. And I'm very encouraged and happy by the response we got to what does it take to shift consumer behavior. And then the next question, that's actually something we are digging in much deeper now and exploring. Now, as a follow-up from Petaluma, it's like, can we make this financially viable for businesses, and what does it take to build the infrastructure that will make it so easy for any business to say yes to reuse? We'll make it a no-brainer. But on the consumer piece, going into Petaluma, we were used to thinking that behavior change, requires a learning curve, and it takes years and it takes generations, and you need to educate one generation now for them to have a different behavior decades from now.
Yeah.
And in Petaluma, we saw that this doesn't have to be the case, that you can actually shift behavior in an entire community in weeks or even days. Like the moment we swapped all the single-use cups by purple reusable cups and made it in a very visible way, made it very widespread across the community, we saw that people embraced this new reuse behavior pretty quickly.
So I think a lot of it's to do with the kind of ubiquity. It was just they were so visible that it was hard to ignore.
Exactly.
And were there any findings from the project, any learnings that surprised you?
This was this quick adoption was definitely surprising. So when reuse became the norm, we thought that this would move the needle. I did not expect that adoption would happen so quickly, that people would actually feel so much pride and would get so excited about the purple cup and about purple bins, that I think I was surprised to see how much people cared about that piece of waste, like for single-use cups to be something so central in the life of that entire community, to the point that the mayor was talking about the program, the point that like high schoolers were competing on who would return more cups, that people were dressed up as purple cups and purple bins for Halloween in that town. Like there's so much excitement around solving a problem that it's just became a part of their routine, and it's part of the day-to-day of that community. So definitely surprising and encouraging to see the fast behavior change. And I think the other thing is I could probably say surprising was when we decided to make the full switch. We weren't sure that people would follow up and actually return the cups, right? So we took on a big risk of putting reusable cups out there, and for free, no strings attached, just like this moral responsibility of doing what your neighbors are doing and doing this because it's the right thing to do for your community. And it could have been, we could have lost a bunch of durable reusable cups, like heavy plastic cups, and that would have been an environmental disaster and a very tough way of learning that we had to explore other paths. But it was not surprising, but very satisfying and very good to find out that we can default to reuse and break even environmentally pretty quickly, as we did during the 3-month program. The reusable cups were already better for the environment than single-use cups.
I guess sometimes you can't overestimate the power of civic pride, can you, in some cases?
Exactly.
Apologies if this is a somewhat dry question, but what data gathering or kind of impact measurement tools did you need to use so you could create, a really clear picture of how successful the pilot was?
Because this was set up as a pilot program, the data was a central piece of everything we were doing. So we set up a pretty robust quantitative and qualitative plan, and we probably over-indexed on the towards like getting more data. So every cup was serialized, every cup was scanned before it was going out, it was scanned when it was received, which enabled us to know the journey and the path that each cup took throughout the program. So if something was sold in a pizza shop and then returned to a public return bin at the community hub, and then its next round it went to a Starbucks coffee shop and then it was returned at a smoothie place, we knew everything about every cup. And that helped us understand what it takes for people to participate and what helps them return cups and what are the most common places for people to return a cup based on where they purchased it. We were able to heat map return zones. We were able to heat map interoperability patterns and understand like which types of stores should be partnering with which types of stores and which stores should care more about interoperability and which stores know that the cups are coming back to their locations because they have like loyal customers who will come back and buy coffee the next morning in the same location. And on top of this like massive like data endeavor, we ran hundreds of surveys, focus groups, intercepts, shop alongs, and to qualitatively uncover the barriers and enablers to return, measure from employees and customers what was their awareness, understanding, satisfaction about the program, and what were their return behaviors.
So really, really robust. That sounds like a very, very thorough picture of pretty much everything that was going on.
Yeah. Oh, there was another one.
Okay,
You got me started on the metrics and the quant, so now I need to nerd out on this. No, there was another aspect that I think was pretty novel and interesting, was because we were going in with this, like, we need safety nets, like, what if people don't return? What happens if this doesn't work out for reuse? It was important for us to make sure that we were recovering the cups at the materials recycling facility for recycling at least. So we added this safety net of like, let's measure how many cups are ending up at the recycling bin. So this was another piece of the quant, was partnering with the Recology, that was the local operator of that recycling facility in Petaluma, and then quantifying the cups that we were finding in the recycling stream. And 5% of the cups ended up there.
Brilliant, thank you. Sounds a little bit like I was in Seattle last year and they had, I think, very much smaller scale, but they were kind of trialing a similar cup system. So I'm guessing we're going to start seeing more of these kinds of sort of local scale things across the US, hopefully.
I think there is a trend, yes. So the trend I see in the industry was, I'd say 10 years ago, it was almost like packaging innovation is a brand differentiator, and each brand should, like competitively think about their packaging innovation. And then there was quickly a shift towards like, we can't do packaging innovation alone. Like, reuse is not a packaging innovation only. This is, we are building a system. We need to build the infrastructure. We need to collaborate pre-competitively. And this is why, like 2018, these brands came together to solve reuse together under the Next Gen consortium. So I think this is a broader industry trend that brands realize, like, we have to do this together, multi-brand. And now I feel that we are going beyond multi-brand collaboration into multi-sector collaboration and bringing into the fold this public partners, civic groups, NGOs, and thinking about multi-sector collaborations. And I think this is just a result of like brands changing behavior. Building infrastructure alone have a steep hill to climb. It's like we can get more powerful results when we go from brand collaboration to multi-sector collaboration. And I think the city level scale is just probably an evolution of how we manage waste in this country, right? Like, people learn their waste behaviors from their townships, from their cities. If in my house I need to like find out if I can recycle polypropylene or not, I need to call my township. So when we want to shift how people are interacting with their used everyday goods, the city level is it's a scale that people understand and can connect to.
Yeah, it feels tangible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
think.
tangible. Also, we tested claims, right? I think in the probably the first reusable packaging I launched, it had turtles on it, and it talked about ocean plastic, and it talked about climate change, and it was so much to swallow, and it's almost an overpromise that you were going to put this cup in this bin and you're solving climate change. So I think this help keep our community clean. It's something that it's tangible, it resonates, it's clear, and it works across political spectrums, right? You don't, yeah, it's pretty bipartisan to help your community do something that will keep it clean.
Yeah, it's not the sort of thing that can be weaponized as a political argument, is it, or something? It's just inherently something that benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously you started with cups. I'm just interested whether you see how this kind of model can be extrapolated to other forms of packaging.
That's the dream. So we obviously started with cups because of its ubiquity, and it's something that people are holding on to for 30 minutes or so. It's an obvious problem to be solved. It's also there are already like lots of innovation around reusable packaging formats. So it's from a business perspective, financial perspective, it's a good place to start. It's a common denominator across different types of businesses. So it was a way to bring a coffee shop together with a soda pouring restaurant together with like pizza shop, smoothie shop, because all of them had a cup. But the vision of this is broader than just solving for single-use cups. The vision is that we are establishing an entire new waste stream for reusables, and it was a journey. We're talking about how like packaging innovation evolved into something else for these brands, and this is the journey we're in. We are not only solving for cups, we are solving for developing an entire new way of consumption and a whole new waste stream. In Petaluma, everyone referred to this project as the Purple Cup project. And our vision is that in our next projects, everyone will talk about the Purple Bin project, because that Purple Bin can take everything that is reusable and go way beyond just cups or food service packaging only.
And are you already planning the next projects? Is that something that's already in the pipeline?
Yes, we've been hard at work preparing the next phases of iteration of continuing to bring reuse from experimentation to implementation at scale. And we're preparing to launch at a bigger city. We were talking about like these two challenges of reuse, the consumer aspect of it and then the financial aspect of it. Petaluma was very focused on, can we make reuse an everyday reality? Is there a world that we can like shift cultural norms in weeks instead of years? And the answer was yes. And we are very excited about the playbook that we developed from Petaluma for the consumer shift that needs to happen. We're heads down on the cost question. Can we do this in a financially viable way? Can we optimize our washing sites so they are sorting faster, washing faster? Can we drive volumes to make those transportation routes and reverse logistics operations to be get the economies of scale that they need to deliver the cost per unit that businesses need to see to scale reuse?
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you, because we all do want to be sustainable, but given that, I think Starbucks and McDonald's are two of the founding partners of NextGen, aren't they? So obviously that kind of goes hand in hand with a need for profitability too. So if we can make these projects profitable for business and sustainable, that must be your end goal. I wondered if there were any any kind of factors you thought you needed to improve upon in future projects? Because it seems like most of the learnings have been positive from the Petaluma pilot, but was there anything that you thought, okay, we could maybe do that better moving forward?
Yeah, so profitability is a big priority, and I don't think it's just like the large brands, right? I think it's even more important for the independent small brands that don't have any innovation budgets. They don't have any sustainability departments. They don't have any other pockets to fund new sustainable programs. Like the unit
Yeah, of
economics
course.
needs to work. Um, and it needs to work beyond subsidies, right? Like grants might come out here and there, but like long term, how will these programs work? So one big part of it is making having a critical mass, enough brands, the multi-sector collaboration, all focused on driving volumes, economies of scales, optimizing supply chains. And then another part of learnings is, so like we hit environmental break-even point, which is like very exciting, a big milestone for reuse. We need to work so much harder to hit financial break-even point.
Mm.
And then the return rates were super encouraging. Like we had 200,000 returns in just 3 months. Over half of the cups were returned. But that's just the beginning, right? We need to continue to work really hard to continue the positive trend that we were seeing. We're seeing return rates grow week over week, and that needs to continue long term. And one key thing that we will have to figure out to make sure this happens is how much option we give. We know that reuse cannot be the thing that people need to opt into. We've learned that when you uh, offer reuse only by request, you will get maybe like less than 10% of people to actually pause, like stop the line, get out of their routine and like choose reuse as an opt-in option.
Mm.
But we also had had challenges with offering reusables to everyone. There were some locations that shouldn't have reuse as the default, like they were drive-through locations by a highway. People were getting their cups and driving out of town and never coming back, and we ended up losing a lot of cups there. So there is something around the range of choice we offer
Yeah.
that's like making reuse as the default, but having opt-out options uh, in places where it makes sense, like segmenting locations and consumers, because there is a portion of consumers that are not interested in reuse and they're not going to return it. So we need to have an easy opt-out single-use version for them.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. And presumably, because more and more states have extended producer responsibility laws coming into place, and projects such reuse is going to kind of help brands meet their requirements for this, that's also a kind of incentive for brands to buy into reuse.
Oh my God, yes, this is a big hot topic right now. Um, 8 US states have passed EPR laws.
Mm.
In pretty much every state, reuse is mentioned somehow in the legislation. In pretty much every state, brands get a discount from their single-use packaging EPR fees if they move their packaging to reusables. On top of that, in California, the biggest US market, they, besides the traditional EPR fee, extended producer responsibility. I'm assuming the audience is
Yeah.
ready on it. But basically, okay, let me take a step back. Extended producer responsibility puts the responsibility of funding the recycling infrastructure of packaging on the producers, on the brands. So every brand that it's producing single-use packaging needs to pay a fee on single-use packaging. And in these extended producer responsibility laws, there are exceptions that brands do not need to pay for the single-use waste management fees if they are in reuse. So brands save money moving to reuse. On top of this extended producer responsibility framework, California also has laws mandating brands to reduce plastic packaging, and within these source reduction laws, there are reuse mandates. So by 2032 in California, 10% of the plastic packaging in the state needs to be reused, refilled, or eliminated. And there are milestones building towards it. The first milestone is like 2% of packaging needs to be reduced in the state by January 2027.
So there really isn't
Based on
time
a
to waste.
2023.
Yeah,
Sorry?
and so there really isn't time to waste at all, is there? We can expect to see more schemes like this appearing
Yeah.
in various cities throughout California. I mean, California's really the front runner in EPR anyway, isn't it? But I expect we'll be seeing this across North America.
Yeah, I think so. But the speed that the EPR laws are passing in different states, we'll probably continue to see a trend of more states passing EPR bills, and we'll see how the source reduction requirement implementation goes in California and how this will inspire other states to be the same. But there is no time to waste. Like the first milestone is in January 2027. So this is this is like 7 months away from now. And within this like targets, this is a target for the entire industry. It's not like each brand needs to reduce this percentage by this date, but like the entire industry needs to work together under the producer responsibility organization leadership to deliver these targets. And we see that food service packaging as a category has a critical role to play in delivering this part of these targets and contributing to a big chunk of the progress toward these deadlines. And reason being, there's been lots of work that already happened in this industry, moving this industry to reuse. There's some level of consumer familiarity, like people understand the concept of reusing bowls and plates and cups. And it's like when you compare to other categories that require redesigning entire manufacturing sites and filling lines like CPGs and refill systems, this is an obvious place to start from my perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carolina. It's been so lovely hearing you talk about this. We hear so much about how reuse has stalled and how difficult it is to scale more widely. So it's great to finally get some positive results as well. And I do think we are starting to see real change, which is fantastic. Yeah. I think, is there anything else you wanted to add? Because sadly, I'm looking now and we seem to be running out of time quite fast.
Oh, it was great to be here. Thanks for always happy to talk. I could talk about this all day, but yeah, moving now from the Purple Cup project into the Purple Bin project there will be a lot of new exciting developments and hopefully more wins for the reuse movement.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear about the Purple Bin project as well. So our listeners should sort of look out for that on Packaging Europe. And for those listeners who want, and I think it can be found on the Closed Loop Partners website, but I can link in the show notes if you want to know more about the project. I think the report you released last year on it is called Making Reuse an Everyday Reality: Insights and Impact from the Petaluma Reusable Cup project. So I will link to that too. Wonderful. All that remains is to say thanks again to Carolina and to our listeners, and do keep your eye on the Packaging Europe website for more reuse pilot updates as they emerge. Take care, everybody.